guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Tanya, and today I'm going to do a reaction video for you. So today's video was suggested to me in my Discord a little while back by one of my Kiwi Discord members, and the channel is Alexander Ailing, and this was uploaded 3 weeks ago. It's called 7 Big Differences Between the USA and New Zealand, and I'm very, very excited to get into this. I was very excited the first time he suggested it. I've had a lot going on, so I haven't had a chance to do it, and I'm excited to get into it. I'm gonna get right into it here in just a second because it's a long video, but I just want to remind everybody that if you're interested in joining the Discord at all, it is completely free and it's linked below. And same with my wish list, if you wanted to get anything off the wish list, or if you wanted to get anything for me even that's not on the wish list, because you can choose whatever you want, that is also linked below. And if you want to help support my channel, the memberships are turned on. But let's go ahead and get started on this video, since like I said, it's a longer one. It's over 20 minutes. So yeah, let's go ahead and check out what are the 7 big differences between the USA and New Zealand. Okay, here we go.
My name's Alexander Ailing. If you're new here, I am a dual citizen of the United States and New Zealand. My dad is born and raised in New Zealand. I was born and raised in the United States, but grew up visiting family here. And in 2021, January of 2021, I moved to New Zealand with my wife. And in February of this year, 2024, my wife and I had our first child, our daughter, Eliana. In this video, I'm gonna be sharing some of the things that I've learned coming from an American perspective about New Zealand, and kind of comparing and contrasting the biggest differences between life in the USA and life in New Zealand. If you're a new viewer, I'm just gonna give a quick recap. 4 years ago, my wife and I moved to New Zealand. We traveled the country and eventually found a old 1940s homestead in the countryside of New Zealand. We bought it, and we've spent the last few years DIY renovating this property. So if you want to see more about—
That's awesome. I did see in, oh God, I think it might have been Curl's video, if I remember right. And he was talking about how DIY is a really huge thing in New Zealand. And so I think it's really, really cool that he's also taken up with that tradition of DIYing stuff. That's awesome.
That. There's a playlist on my channel. Make sure you subscribe if you're new here. Give this video a thumbs up if you like it, and drop a comment with your thoughts or questions down in the comment section. Okay, let's get into it. One of the first things that I noticed moving here from America, living in Southern California, and definitely being a part of that American work hustle culture in my 20s, was the difference in the work-life balance in New Zealand. When we moved to the town that we live in, it's a small rural town. We were driving down the street on a Friday night at 4:45 p.m. and all the shops were closing up or closed. They closed at 5 p.m. Very few businesses were open past that, other than a couple of, fast food American businesses like McDonald's or Burger King, and a couple of restaurants. And at first I remember going, wow, this is insane. Like, I can't believe everything's closed on a Friday night. But then I realized, who really wants to be working on a Friday night?
No one.
Very few people. Most people would probably be home with their families and spending time with people they care about. That was kind of a revolutionary moment for me, and an understanding of, oh, there is a much different work-life balance in this country, and one that definitely leans towards benefiting the individual versus benefiting the corporation or the employer. And that work-life balance approach is evident across society, across New Zealand culture. In 2023, the platform Remote, which does a ranking of 60 high GDP countries around the world for work-life balance, found that New Zealand had the best score, 80 out of 100, for work-life balance. New Zealand also has a particularly high minimum wage, and—
Sorry, I just realized my dog was opening this curtain. I don't know how I didn't even notice that. Sorry about that. So anyway, I think it's really great that New Zealand does that. I think it's great that for any countries who do that, like the people who would end up having to work those types of shifts, like the type of jobs like in America that are open later, those people of course don't want to work on weekends or late at night or like anything like that. But as an American, someone who's used to stores being open late, it would be a very difficult adjustment for me personally, just because you take it for granted a little bit, and like, you know that it's there and it's open if you have an emergency situation. You're like, oh my God, my kid needs cough syrup. It's 10 p.m. I can run up to the gas station. I can get a thing of cough syrup, or, you know, whatever the situation is. Usually something is going to be open. And I like that about America, but also I can understand why New Zealand and other countries don't do that, because, you know, like he said, nobody wants to work when they, you know, when everybody else is off. Nobody wants to work at night. Nobody likes to work on weekends. You know, life should be more about living than it should be about working. I completely agree with that sentiment. I'm just saying, like, from someone who has grown up in America, I'm very used to and accustomed to things being open late. However, with COVID, when COVID started, there were a lot of companies that, well, closed for one, but also that their hours have changed now. So some places don't even stay open as late as they used to, which is kind of a bummer, you know, for me, because like I said, I'm used to it. No, Violet. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say about that.
Generous annual leave. Very rarely do people lead with that awkward American question when you first meet somebody. What do you do for a living?
For work, what do you do?
Wait, but what do you do for work?
It does come up, but not as often. And if it does come up, it's way down the conversation list. I think that Kiwis work to...
Honestly, I would say it just depends on the person about the what do you do for a living question. I don't think everybody asks that, and I don't think everybody cares, you know? I don't personally ask people really what they do for a living. I don't think I've ever asked anybody. I don't know if people really ask me what I do for a living either. I think maybe I've gotten questions 1 or 2 times since starting YouTube, like, what did you do before YouTube? But other than that, that's not like a question I hear a lot. And so I think that kind of depends on the person. It depends on maybe the type of person, you know. So like, super career oriented people are going to be people who always are thinking about careers, you know. And so those would probably be the people that are asking other people what they do for a living. Like, they probably care more. I don't know. I personally don't give a shit what anyone does for a living. You do you, and I don't care. I'm happy for you, whatever you do. I don't care. But I'm not like career oriented. I was always more, I want to be a mom, you know, and that was my whole life goal, was just to be a mom.
Live versus live to work. Number 2, societies do exist where people with different opinions can coexist peacefully. It might seem hard to believe in this day and age with the state of the world, the state of politics, but New Zealand, I believe, has a really healthy approach to it. They don't talk politics all the time. Very rarely has anything political ever really come up in conversation with my Kiwi friends. When you go to a dinner party,
That's
it's
awesome.
not like, let's talk about the most awkward and potentially divisive thing we can. Where I feel like many times in the USA, especially nowadays, politics comes up.
I think that for the most part, most Americans don't want to talk about politics either. And they're not bringing it up to their friends and their family. Like, most people are not doing that. Most Americans even are not doing that. I know I don't ever do that. Politics is just something that, like, most people hate it, you know? So even here, as much as we talk about it, like people in general talk about it, I don't think there's a ton of people that are trying to start conversations about politics with their friends and family. I don't.
Rears its ugly little head everywhere, and it drives wedges between friendships and families, especially in the current climate. So
that reminds me, have you guys seen, I don't know if you guys ever like watch any of this crazy stuff on the internet with the whole Trump Harris thing that was going on, and how Trump just got elected president again, and all the people who had voted for Harris like are now going on the internet like crying and saying that they're this was last week for our Thanksgiving. People were saying, I'm not going to go to my family's for Thanksgiving because they voted for Trump, or I'm not going to invite my friends or family over for Thanksgiving because they voted for Trump, you know, yada, 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 that sort of thing. It's so stupid and it's so ridiculous. Like, it's so stupid that I don't even have words.
I really like how New Zealand approaches politics. New Zealand is a fully functioning, stable democracy. It's got multi-party system. So, you know, there's not just the two options, the two-party system like in the USA. There's multiple different parties that encompass many different diverse beliefs, and it's a parliamentary system. But, you know, politics and elections are pretty mellow down here. And I really think that that is a great approach to inclusive, peaceful democracy. Everybody's entitled to their own beliefs. There's a level of freedom here I feel
I wish it was like that
anywhere
here.
else I've ever been in the world. Now, that being said, people are a lot more respectful of each other and each other's individual rights, but at the same time there's an expectation of kind of being a good member of society, and I think that that balance is really nice. It encourages people to be good, upright citizens and to kind of take care of the common good, the commonwealth of the country.
Wow, look at that
I feel
view.
is something that
Where is that at? That is such a view.
is kind of lacking over in the USA. There's a focus on individual rights over everything, whereas I think New Zealand has a much more nuanced approach to that. Obviously, individual rights are important and people can do what they want as long as they're not breaking the law. At the same time, there's also a feeling of like being a member of a community, being a member of society, and doing your best to make sure that you're not like harming anybody or being a nuisance. I don't know. That's kind of what I've gathered from here, especially in the political scene. The last election in New Zealand was in October of 2023, October 14th, 2023. I voted in that election, and it was very interesting. There was a peaceful transition of power. The incumbent party was voted out, which seems to be a trend across the world right now. People were pretty relaxed about it. And even if you have different political beliefs, people don't really make that something bigger than it is. Number 3, the next thing.
Like people who make it like their whole personality, whether they're a Democrat or Republican, or whether they're a liberal, or whether they're, you know, left or right, or what, blue or red, like whatever you want to say. But people do make that their like whole identity here, and I think that's completely insane. I don't personally identify as Democrat or Republican. I am more of a, I'd rather see who's running and then choose wisely. You know what I mean?
That I think is a really big difference between New Zealand and the USA is that people in this country lead with trust. Interpersonal interactions are based off of a base level of trust, which is much higher than in the USA. Now, obviously, New Zealand has a much smaller population than the United States. There's only 5 million people who live in New Zealand. The landmass of New Zealand between the 3 main islands is about the same amount of land as the state of Oregon. When you extrapolate numbers,
That's so
5
crazy
million
to think
people is a
about.
lot smaller than 336 or more million people who live in the USA. When you have more people, you have more bad apples. But generally, the harvest of apples here in New Zealand is pretty good, both for the trees and for the people. I think that Kiwis lead with a base level of trusting you, trusting in the inherent good in people. And when you do that as a society,
I actually love that you guys have that more trusting nature and stuff. And I wish America had that, but I don't think it's even possible because, like he said, you guys have way less people, first of all, but also people here, like, guns are allowed here, you know? So, like, it's just hard to trust anybody. I as a woman in America, I don't expect that I'm going to ever get hurt, but you do have to be prepared if anything does happen to you. You know, I don't have a gun or anything, but I do carry knives and pepper spray and that sort of stuff with me and my own sort of things to keep me safe. I used to carry an alarm with me when I would walk to my friend's house, like a really loud alarm that you could set off and like it would scare someone away. So you do have to be prepared, but like the chances of something happening are usually really small depending on like where you live, especially where I live. I live in a city where there's only like 150,000 people. So we don't have like a ton of crime, but there's crime everywhere. So basically what I'm saying is much harder for an American to be trusting of other people around them just because there's so much crap in America and crappy people.
Effects of that ripple out far and wide and make society feel better. Just better vibes between people. Interpersonal relationships improve. I can't tell you how many people I've met in the last few years living down here who have been so trusting and so kind and so giving. And I think that that has really impacted me and made me be the same. For example, when we purchased this house and we closed on it, we shook hands with the real estate agent and he's like, right, well, we'll see you later. And he starts leaving and I'm like, wait, what about the keys? And he goes, oh, there are no keys. And I'm like, what?
What?
And he goes, yeah, there's no keys because the owner hasn't locked this house in the last 15 years. And I said, wow, that's really beautiful, but like also having just bought this place, I would really like the keys because there are locks on the doors. So obviously we got new keys and got the locks changed, whatever, but people are pretty trusting and
there are so many places in America that are just like this. In my city, I would say most people do lock their stuff up. But like, for instance, if I probably shouldn't even say this, but if I go up to the gas station closest to my house, I won't do this anywhere else. Just the gas station closest to my house, because I know everyone there and everything. And it's really cold outside. I will pull up and leave my car running with the heat on, and run in to get whatever it is that I went in there to grab and leave again. So I'll literally leave my car running in the parking lot. And I know nothing will happen to it, you know? But there are a lot of people who will leave car doors unlocked and their house doors unlocked and stuff like that. Here too, but more so smaller communities, more so the small towns you find that. But it does happen here too.
And relaxed, and it's really nice to live in a place that feels like that. I don't think that that's the case in the States. And like I said, there's a bigger population.
Well, I mean, he's also from California, and I'm sure there's places in California that are like the small town vibes and maybe they do stuff like that. But I wouldn't consider California a state where you would see a lot of people leaving stuff unlocked, you know?
And larger gaps. I think that it's worth mentioning that New Zealand is a more equitable society. There's less extremes of wealth and poverty. I don't know. I don't have the answers to all of these larger socioeconomic questions, but these are just my observations. And living in a place where people lead with trust is really nice. And I should just say that Kiwis are friendly, hospitable, and inclusive. So that's awesome. And that kind of just rolls into the next one, which is New Zealand has a great sense of community. Even though we live in the countryside, we are really close with a lot of our neighbors. People are so kind, so giving.
This could be a country thing too, though. Perhaps it's like this in rural America. Let me know in the comments. Here, let me just rewind that and double check what he said.
Has a great sense of community. Even though we live in the countryside, we are really close with a lot of our neighbors. People are so kind.
I would say that even in America, even in the major cities, there is a lot of sense of community. And I say even in the bigger cities, because even in the bigger city, there's gonna have they're gonna have like places you can go to meet with like-minded people, or groups that you can be a part of, or whatever. And rural America, of course, yeah, there is a lot of community. In my city, like I said, it's a small city, so it's 150,000 people, but there is a big sense of community here also, because, you know, we have a lot of community type things that the town will put on, you know, activities, and people are always being included in different things around the town. So I do think that there is a lot of sense of community throughout all of America. Like, there may be areas like maybe New York City is different. Maybe definitely LA would be different. And there might be a few pockets of areas that are less community driven. But in my opinion, I think that most of America is very community driven, I think.
So giving with their time, with their expertise, with so many things. I can't tell you how many times my wife and I have just been blown away by how friendly people are here and how kind and giving they are, especially with time. Kiwis don't feel rushed. There is a approach to time that's very laid back, coming from the USA, where it's go, go, go all the time, and you can't be late, you gotta go now, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. There's a stress and anxiety that pervades life in the USA that is really not as apparent here in New Zealand. There's a lot of phrases, one of which is "she'll be right," which just means like it's all good. People are way more laid back. Yeah, life moves fast enough. There's no need to make it go faster. And that also...
Sorry guys, I turned the heat down before I started the video so it wouldn't kick on and be loud, but now I'm cold. So I had to put a sweatshirt on, sorry. Okay.
Leads to a feeling of community. We have a great group of neighbors, have barbecues and dinner parties and play groups with the kids, and all of these things are more reasons that we really love being down here. And I will just say, we lived in a bunch of different places in LA, and even when we were living in the suburbs of LA, we had a ton of neighbors. We only really had good relations with one of our neighbors, and literally the neighbors who we shared a fence with. I don't know what their deal was, but like we went over there and knocked on their door when we first moved in and like wanted to introduce ourselves. They didn't answer, and for the 2 years that we lived there, they kind of like just avoided us, and we never actually met them. It was weird, and it's nice to be able to know your...
I think that's kind of weird. Like, I don't know every neighbor in my neighborhood, but certainly the way we are in Illinois, or at least in my town, I don't know all of Illinois, but a lot of Midwestern people in general will wave to people as they drive by. So I always wave to even if I don't really know them, I'll wave as I drive by or smile at them, and I do that with strangers that I see walking in and out of a store. You smile at them. That's very normal here where I'm from. And like I said, he's from LA. So I think it's important to try and remember that whenever you see videos of someone explaining the differences between America and another country, if they say they're from LA, well, especially if they've never lived anywhere else but LA in America, then you can't really take everything. Kind of like if they say they're from New York City, you can't really take every single thing they say to heart, just because LA and New York City are two very different places. You know, they're very different than the rest of America. And I know that most people look at New York City and LA as that's America and that's it. That's a wrap. That's America. But it's not. LA and New York City are like their own worlds, and the rest of America is very different from there. So whatever experiences he had in LA, I would say, I would say that probably a lot of it's not like the rest of, at least not like the Midwest.
Neighbors, have good relations with your neighbors, and have a sense of community. Number 5, New Zealand is the land of DIY. The do-it-yourself mentality is very strong here in New Zealand.
I love that.
And I think it's probably due to a number of different factors, but I will say that people are quite capable down here, especially in the countryside, but all across New Zealand, there is a culture of do-it-yourself, of learning how to do things if you don't know how to do them. And it kind of goes back to the original thing where I was saying that people are really giving with their time. Every single step along the way of renovating this property, I've hired people originally to kind of help with larger jobs. And during that process, all of those people were super helpful, totally fine with me kind of shadowing and teaching me how to do the things that they were doing. And through that, I've learned to become much more competent. So the DIY mentality is really strong in New Zealand. And businesses like TaskRabbit, for example, in the USA, where you can hire a handyman to come and do things in your house. And there's a bunch of different handymen who are on an app and you're like, okay, I'll pick this one. That's convenient, but at the same time, I feel like it leaves people feeling incapable of doing fairly straightforward things. And I don't know if that goes back to that work-life balance. At least for me, when I was living in the States, I was always focused on working, and thinking like, my time's better spent doing this task on the computer and making money, and then I'll just pay somebody to do something as simple as like hanging some decorations around the house. Whereas here, that is not the case. Hey, you can do it. Here's how you do it, and go for it. Through moving to New Zealand, through renovating this house and learning how to take care of the land and growing food and canning and harvesting and all of these things have helped make me a more rounded, well-rounded individual.
Is canning something that like most Kiwis do? Do you usually do your own canning, or is this more of a rural thing and he's doing it? I'm just curious. Because, I mean, people can in America too. I was just curious. Because I think here it's more so a rural thing, but.
And a much more competent, confident person. So the DIY culture here in New Zealand is strong. And then number 6.
I just want to say about the DIY thing really quick. I love the DIY. I love that your culture does that, and you kind of have a need for that also. And I grew up very much like that in a sense because my dad is a carpenter by trade, and he built houses my whole life. So anytime anything ever needed fixed or built or anything in our family, my dad did it. My dad built onto our house. He built furniture. I have 2 tables in my living room right now that he built. He's done so much stuff, and I learned a lot from him as a kid. And like, I have a very large family, and my husband isn't good at like mechanics and stuff, but I have an uncle who's really good at that stuff. So my husband will drive my son over to my uncle's house sometimes to learn to like work on a car and like learn some stuff. So we have a little bit of that here too. I know it's not the exact same thing, but I'm just saying like there are a lot of people who do that type of thing here.
People lead with kindness. There is a universal approach to interactions between people in New Zealand society that leads with kindness.
I love that.
People are nice. Even your daily
I agree.
interactions in town, in the city, if you're running.
The few Kiwis in my Discord are also very, very nice. Very nice.
Errands. It's very rare that you're gonna get into an argument with a person in a parking lot at the grocery store. Road rage incidents are rare. And yeah, I think that, you know, people in New Zealand are just not as quick to anger, not as quick to confrontation. And that is definitely something that I have noticed while living here.
Maybe I should just move to New Zealand. What do you think?
To back in the United States.
I've always
People are just
wanted
nicer,
to go there.
and that is a wonderful thing. Living in a place where people are nice to each other is great, and I can't overstate how important that is, especially being a new father, raising a child. Living in a country where people lead with kindness is priceless. And it's also something that is kind of reiterated in New Zealand society, in the media, even in politics. People lead with kindness first, and they can have disagreements, but they do it in a respectful way instead of belittling others or, you know, making fun of them or whatever. If they have a disagreement, they can do it in a much more kind way.
Mature.
So that, I think, is really important, especially nowadays. And then finally, number 7 is childhood care.
Oh.
This is a huge
I bet
difference
this is so
between
great.
the USA and New Zealand. In New Zealand, childcare is covered. Your taxes go towards maternity
You are
care.
so
the
lucky.
wife, she was pregnant from the moment of conception until 6 months after birth. She had a midwife. This was all covered by the healthcare system. There is a public healthcare system here in New Zealand, and while some people say that it could be improved, and of course there's ways to improve anything, in our experience it's been pretty good. There's also private healthcare. If you need to do something faster or whatever, you can get private healthcare here, but the public healthcare, maternity care was covered by that.
You guys are very lucky to have that. Very, very lucky. It's expensive as fuck to have a child in America. It's ridiculous. I remember this vlogger that I watched that lives in California, she has twins, and they ended up in the NICU for, I think, almost 2 months because they were born early. And because of that, her bill was over $1 million. $1 million because she had twins early in a NICU. Like, is that not insane? Like, imagine this was somebody who didn't make very much money. I mean, she's pretty well off. She's a vlogger and she's, you know, famous. But this happens to people all over the States who are not well off, and it's really sad. It's really sad.
And from the moment my wife found out she was pregnant, she got a midwife. From that, we would have regular meetings with the midwife at her house. She had a little office in the back, and we would visit, I think, like once every 2 weeks for the first 6 months of the pregnancy, and then towards the end it was more regular. After my wife gave birth to our daughter Eliana, the midwife would come to our house.
That's such a pretty name,
which is,
Eliana.
you know, like 20 minutes outside of town, and she would have regular checkups, just monitoring the baby's health and giving any advice that we would need, or medicine or tips or whatever. That was all covered. And not only that, there's maternity leave. And
Seeing this baby, oh my God, it's making me so excited for my grandbaby to come. Oh, cannot wait.
paternity leave. You are working for an employer. Right here on the business.gov website, it says employees may be entitled to up to 26 weeks of government-funded parental leave payments.
Whoa.
And they're also entitled to unpaid parental leave for either 52 weeks or 26 weeks,
Jesus.
depending on how long they've worked for you.
That's insane. Like, we just don't have that here. Like, some companies will give you 6 weeks maternity and pay you for it. Some. A lot of companies don't give you any maternity leave at all. So if you take off, you're just not getting paid. And then there might be some rare companies that pay you for longer, but it's very rare. It's just not, it's not that simple here. It's bullshit here, basically, is what I'm saying.
Really great incentives to become a parent here. I know stories that I've heard, and looking into it, it's not the case in the USA. It can be quite expensive to have a baby, especially if you don't have health care. And there's no law stating that your employer needs to cover you for parental leave. I think that that's also a reason why a lot of people in my generation, the millennial generation, and then also in Gen Z, are really questioning whether or not they can have children, which is super sad, because having a baby, having a child has been one of the most transformational and rewarding experiences of my life. I know that our baby's only 8 months old, but we're so just smitten and in love, and it's opened my heart so much, taught me so much, and I'm so glad that we decided to have a baby here in New Zealand especially, but just in general. There's a lot of things that New Zealand does very well with maternity care, and I think it's something that the rest of the world should be looking at and trying to emulate. A lot of Kiwis go overseas in their 20s, and they'll either go to Australia or the UK or Canada or sometimes the States. Those first 3 countries, they have a good kind of international visa exchange, so it's easy for Kiwis to go over to Canada or to go to the UK or to go to Australia, and so they do. But oftentimes they end up coming back to have a family, and I think that that's because the maternity care is so great here, and also
I don't blame them.
It's just a fantastic place to raise a family because it's consistently ranks as one of the safest countries in the world. Currently, I think it's ranked as the #2 safest country in the world
No
after
way.
Iceland. You know, raising a kid here in New Zealand is really wonderful. Such great access to nature.
I didn't know
It's
that.
a
That's
more
amazing.
slow, laid-back lifestyle, and when raising children, I think that
look at
there's a
that.
huge benefit to slowing down and engaging more with your child instead of kind of being distracted or stressed or anxious. I guess there are a lot more differences between New Zealand and the USA. I actually made a video about this, but with different comparisons previously. So if you want to watch more, if you're interested in learning more about the differences between the USA and New Zealand, you can check that video out. I'll link it in the description. If you have any other questions, if you'd like me to make another follow-up video to this, then please just drop those down in the comment section. And if you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you're curious about coming to New Zealand, traveling here, I have a whole host of great videos about traveling to New Zealand, itineraries for the whole country, a 2-week itinerary, a 3-week itinerary, lots of different travel tips. So check those videos out. I'll link those down in the description as well, or in the cards here. Okay friends, well, I hope you enjoyed that video. Sending love to everybody out there watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Okay, peace.
That was a good video. I'm gonna subscribe to this guy really quick here. If you like to, or if you would like me to, react to some more of his videos, let me know in the comments. I would like to. I really like this guy. He has such pretty eyes too, by the way. But yeah, I really enjoyed this video. I hate doing like really long videos because I hate making really long videos and editing really long videos. But maybe I do belong in New Zealand because I just don't want to work, you know? Look at me being like lazy. Anyway, I really enjoyed that video. I'm gonna make this a really quick outro because this is a very long video. But I really enjoyed that, and I learned a lot in this video. Some of the stuff I did already know, but I did learn a lot also. And I really enjoyed this, guys. So I would really like to watch some more of his videos. Maybe I'll do a travel vlog of his, or his other one that he mentioned with more differences between USA and New Zealand. But something, I'll find another video of his to react to soon. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed today's video, please give it a like, subscribe if you haven't done that yet, and I'll see you next time.